I was sleeping on someone's floor for a year. In that case, 2 years I was sleeping on floors and couches and moving around.
Jeez.
I was on food stamps, and I was coaching at a Division I institute, and I was producing. The athletes that I coach actually won and became champions and became All-Americans. I feel like wherever you're going to get, it's really up to you and your decisions and your drive. I feel like that's what it comes down to know exactly what your goal is.
Yeah.
Because that it focuses your actions and your choices. And then the next year, I was an Olympian. I was able to represent the Virgin Islands at the 2004 Games in Athens, which was amazing.
Welcome to the Cheat Code Corner podcast, where we hit you with the cheat codes to help you advance in the areas that you care about. I'm your host, DC, and today we actually have a very, very unique guest. Before I even name drop him, and keep in mind, he is not even 40 yet. It's in 2 stages. D1A athlete, All-American, Olympian. Sure, there's AAU stuff in there. Stage 2, coach, D1 head coach, one of the youngest there. Not only that, coached All-Americans, the fastest man in Spain. Now he's a personal speaker. This is all before 40, by the way, okay? And so I am very, very pleased to introduce the head of men's track and field at Cornell University, Adrian, Mr. Blue Check Durant.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the introduction. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for hopping on, man. I really appreciate, carving out some time. Busy schedule, I'm sure. But man, I'm really excited to get you on the podcast. I'm going to be asking some questions, some uncomfortable questions today.
Man, please go for it, man. I'm ready. I'm always ready.
You ready? Okay, Mr. Blue Check. Well, listen, as I mentioned, I'm really happy that you've been able to hop on the podcast because obviously I've known you for a bit of time, but you've had 2 careers. You've had 2 careers of inspiration that we could dive into, and we only have a bit of time today, but I really wanted to dive into them because I think you have a lot to offer and a lot to say. And so I'd love to start out with at least the first section, right? Where we talk about, you being a D1A athlete and becoming an Olympian. Now, obviously there's a lot of backstory to that, which we need to provide a little bit, but it's essentially, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you're from Virgin Islands and then went to New Jersey specifically to run track.
Yes. So growing up on St. Croix, track and field was my thing at a pretty young age. I got involved at 2nd grade. I was one of those kids that had just way too much energy. And to stop my mother from going crazy, she pretty much just put me in every sport that was available. At first, I was a little too young for most sports. I started out with martial arts and then eventually ended up in track and field and flag football and soccer and a bunch of other sports. But track was the one that kind of stuck for me. I got pretty good at it.
Yeah, pretty good at it.
Got pretty good at it, started winning races. And through winning those races, the local races, I got the opportunity to compete in the British Virgin Islands. So I lived in the U.S. Virgin Islands. I grew up on St. Croix. And because I was running so well, I had the chance to go with a youth group to the British Virgin Islands, to Tortola, and then eventually to other islands down the chain, Anguilla and these different places. And so I realized, wow, through this, I can travel and see different places. And I got to experience different cultures at a young age. And it was also such a new experience for me, seeing like these different places with different money, where the money was designed weird. I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. Mm-hmm. And so I got the bright idea at some point to say, you know what, I want to take this all the way and run in the Olympics. And I'm not sure what age I was. I was young. I was probably 11 years old. And I know that the folks around me, my mother and my grandmother, they were behind that. They supported that idea. And through that idea, that became kind of my mission. And
so you had a mission early. You had a mission early. I mean, I didn't actually realize that. So from early, it was already, you had this vision of wanting to be an Olympian. That was just imprinted through some of the success that you had. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I don't know if I saw, the Olympics on TV or what it was. I don't remember seeing a lot of track on TV, but I just know that I was gaining recognition. I was winning ribbons and I was traveling, and that was exciting for me. Yeah. And I must have seen the Olympics one day on TV and saw the best of the best and thought, that's what I want to do. I want to get that good, be that fast, run on that stage. And that kind of was my thing.
So it was actually something kind of interesting too, which I mean, outside of maybe some folks that go to like special academies for basketball or something. I mean, you went to New Jersey from the Virgin Islands to high school for the specific purpose of, hey, like I need to get good. I need to get a scholarship. I mean, so you went into school with that purpose, which I think is not normal for most people.
And it sheds some light on a couple of things that I'm going to get to, especially when I met you. And so I grew up with my mother and my grandmother on St. Croix. And there was very limited opportunity when it came to track and field. You had the interscholastic stuff, you had the local stuff, and we could raise money to travel to those meets in the islands that were close. Mm-hmm. But there was really no big high school track and field scene. And so it's like, if I'm going to pursue this, I have to leave St. Croix. And so my mother sent me to New Jersey to live with her first cousin, my Uncle Jerry, and my Aunt Ruth. And so that's why I left St. Croix. So after 8th grade, I moved directly to TNEC to start 9th grade. Moving from St. Croix, where I had lived my entire life to that point, 13 years, to New Jersey, very, very different experience. You know, academically, I was good. I was always a good student. So it wasn't an issue there, although it was a concern, would my grades translate? But it did. I had no problem in TNEC. But it was tough, you know, being a freshman, getting into TNEC, going to TNEC high school, because I didn't go to the middle school that all of you went to. So I knew nobody, essentially. Yeah. And so the only thing that I had that I knew is I knew I was fast. And so when I got there, my thing was to be like, okay, well, you know, I don't know anybody, or I'm new here, but I know I'm faster than everybody. And I was going to stick with that. And I talked enough trash until somebody was like, well, you're not faster than my friend, you know, Damien. And that's how that conversation got started.
You know, you broke pretty much every record in the local area and counties, you know what I mean? So, I mean, that was already, and then, you know, you got offers from some schools, but it was interesting because it wasn't necessarily the schools that you wanted to go to at the top of the top from a track perspective.
Yes. And so I feel two ways about this, being at Cornell now and knowing that both you and I were in the same AP courses. Academically, I could have run track at Cornell or Princeton. And I know how the financial aid works at those schools now, these schools. I wouldn't have had to pay a dime. Mm-hmm. So I wish I would have known that, but that would have changed my whole journey. At the end of the day, I figured to get to the Olympics, I need to go to a track school that had Olympians, that had people who were the best of the best. And although I did very well at TNEC High, I hadn't run quite fast enough to earn a scholarship at one of the best schools in the country. Now, I don't know if you knew this, but so I ended up walking on to the University of South Carolina, but I had previous experiences with South Carolina throughout my life, which kind of made it seem like that was the place for me regardless. One of my first experiences was as a youth in the Virgin Islands, traveling to a competition in Columbia, South Carolina for this International Youth Games thing. And we actually stayed on South Carolina's campus. And I had forgotten all about that. And then I had been introduced to the head coach of South Carolina while I was at TNEC by one of our coaches. And it started all kind of coming together. So it was just always this theme around South Carolina. And so I wasn't sure at the time that I was going to go to college. I had the grades, but didn't have the money. And I was going to at that point, I was like, well, I may just train, which was a terrible idea. And my grandfather, at the time, he was like, no, you're going to college. And he pulled out a little bit of money that he saved. And my mom pulled out a little bit of money that she saved. And I took out a loan for, $15,000 to cover that first year. And I walked on to the University of South Carolina with the intention of earning a full scholarship.
But I do remember you saying just like, look, if I can just get to where they are at, if I can just get around those guys are not going to beat me. And like, again, I always believed in it, but again, you're talking about South Carolina, you had some of the Olympians, you know what I mean? All Americans, you had some of the fastest people in the nation or in the world there.
Well, this goes in line with kind of my philosophy. I mean, at the end of the day, anything you're trying to accomplish, you're never going to succeed at anything if you don't take a risk, period. There's going to be a risk. And so that was my risk. Mm-hmm. I could go to South Carolina, get a full scholarship and be back the next year, or go there, not get a full scholarship and be back home the next year. And those were my options. Those were my options. And I was confronted with those options. I mean, I had coach sit me down and say, hey, you're not going to be here next year if you don't run fast. And I understood that. So, I worked my butt off and I ran fast enough. And some folks who had scholarships didn't They just didn't. Everyone has a different developmental path, but sometimes, if you're really good in high school, sometimes it can be hard to keep that chip on your shoulder and push through. And this is with everything. And so I think my motivation was a little stronger than some folks who were on scholarship already.
So when you earn that scholarship and then you got to keep it, right? You know what I mean? You got to keep
it.
You have to keep it, right? Did the sense of validation wash all over you, or did you say, nah, like I need to keep this up. These guys, every year there's a new crop of people running fast. Brendan Christian, John Fortenberry, all these guys pumping out times. I mean, what was that like? Because that could not have been easy.
No. Well, let me tell you right now, I don't think anything's easy. So I just don't think that. I think we're in the world and we live life. And I think life is at a consistent, hard difficulty level. And sometimes it might spike up to, very hard. Yeah. But I think it consistently is around a hard level. I think I don't see what's easy.
Do you think that's maybe some of your background though, too? I mean, you talked about it, raised by mom and grandmother in St. Croix, have to go to a different place to run.
And on a piggyback, on top of that, I also was adopted. So, I was adopted and don't know who my father is. Mm-hmm. And so these are all things that I hear are supposed to stop me from being successful. That's what I hear.
Mm-hmm. But statistically, it's supposed to make it difficult.
But life is already difficult. So, I feel like wherever you're going to get, it's really up to you and your decisions and your drive. I feel like that's what it comes down to. But no, it was difficult. I got my scholarship. There's a pressure to keep your scholarship, which I did. And then the next year I was an Olympian. I was able to represent the Virgin Islands at the 2004 games in Athens, which was amazing. And so I had accomplished that life goal.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, how did that feel? I mean, that was big time. I remember when you qualified, I mean, it was a big deal. Like, working for that for, 10 something years of putting in hard labor, huh?
Yeah, it was a big deal. It was quite the experience. The Olympic Games, there's nothing like it. It's hard to describe. And it was in Athens too, which was the home. So it was very historic. It was amazing meeting the people and just the whole experience, interacting with the athletes from other countries and seeing some of the best athletes on the planet live and direct. Like I came across Yao Ming standing just on a corner and it was just incredible. And so it's hard to describe. It was an amazing experience. And, but I do think that I took it for granted a little bit because I was only 18 at the time, maybe. And so at that point, I just thought I'll be back here again. This is who I am. And I think I learned another life lesson in that because it took me a while to get back to the Olympics. And also, I also think that one, I guess, a negative effect for me was that had been my goal for so long to make it to the Olympics that I didn't make another goal. And that's an issue. Yep. And so I think I found myself in a state where I was continuing to run track and train for a number of years after the initial Olympics, but I hadn't made another goal. And so I didn't improve at the same rate that I did before because I didn't have a clear vision. So I do think it's very important to know exactly what your goal is. Yeah. Yeah. Because that it focuses your actions and your choices.
I mean, that clarity of a goal, I think, gives you that North Star. And so I do think, and North Star where you can actually focus your energy. You're not waking around saying, what am I supposed to do? It's funny you should bring that up. Like I went to Penn State and didn't run there or anything like that, but I had to pay out-of-state tuition, right?
You should have ran. You were pretty good.
Don't gas me up, all right? You know what I mean? I was okay for local.
You were good enough. You were good enough to run at Penn State.
I mean, maybe, who knows? But I go out there and so take on school loans and then by choice, and then I'd go to grad school, take on more school loans. So my goal since 18, right? Yes, graduate and stuff has really been to pay off school loans. That had real talk. A lot of what I've done, of course, I want to network and work. But going back to your point is once I paid off Penn State, I was actually in a weird.
You didn't know what to do.
I didn't know what to do.
It's like you want to keep paying. You're like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, my life focus actually. I was just like, oh, am I supposed to? You're paying for 10 plus years. What am I supposed? I had to refine the fire, almost reinvent myself, which is tough. I had to read a book called How to Design Your Life to actually find, to refocus my life. But it's so important to find a new goal and to invest your time in it. Because if you do not do it, you're just going to be floating. You're going to be
Absolutely. You'd be lost in the wind, just floating around.
Yeah. Let me ask you then, how did you walk on, you hit your major goal. I mean, Olympian, you did it. Walked on, great school, became a killer yourself, All-American, right? How did you then transition? And a lot of athletes do transition to coaching, but your story is interesting because of how quickly and how successfully you transitioned to coaching.
Because my idea was I would like to be a Division I coach in track and field. I remember my college coach, Coach Fry, he was always driving a brand new car, always seemed really cool. He was traveling the world. Yep. He came into work at like 11. It was this, I was like, man, this
flexible lifestyle.
He's coaching track. Yeah, it's making tons of money. He's coaching track and this is great. So that seems like a job I could do. Even though I like IT, it's not a job I can do. I don't like being in an office. So for this, I was like, that seems like the goal. How do I become a Division I head coach? Well, I need to become a Division I coach. How to do that? Well, they're not going to hire anyone who doesn't have coaching experience already. So I either have to coach for years at a lower level, or I volunteer coach in a Division I school, build up my resume, and then I can apply for an assistant position. And that's what I did. So I saved up money, moved to Florida, to Florida, Tallahassee, Florida, so that I can volunteer coach at FAMU. That means I'm working for free.
Still paying, learning,
but working for free and paying bills. So
that's what I call grinding, folks. That's called grinding, sacrifice.
Needless to say, I was sleeping on someone's floor for a year. In that case, 2 years, I was sleeping on floors and couches and moving around. I was on food stamps, and I was coaching at a Division I institute, and I was producing. The athletes that I coach actually won and became champions and became All-Americans.
Wow.
And so I had the opportunity to prove myself. I did. And based off of what I did at FAMU, I was able to get the assistant coach position at Cornell. Now, I also had networked and had met the head coach at Cornell. So a combination of networking, but also performing and showing my value. So then I get the assistant coach job at Cornell. So this is kind of how things developed.
It's kind of interesting that when you're telling that story, one of the things that I loved what you said earlier was like, essentially, hey, these paths are not necessarily linear. You got to test things out, go up and down. And that's a point that I think people don't realize. Everyone thinks it's good. There's a straight shot somewhere.
Look, I'm 37 now. At 27, I was broke. Flat broke. At 30, I was flat broke. Now I had a degree. I had a master's degree. I was an Olympian already. I already had levels of success, but it didn't matter. And that's the point that people need to understand. Like, in this world, whatever you're going to accomplish, like, you have to go get it. It doesn't matter. I could have just sat there with all those, titles and accolades, things like that, and been broke, which is what I was. But I had determined what I wanted and went after it. And there were a lot of risks along the way, and a lot of pitfalls, and a lot of situations that I thought I may not, get out of, and it's just a lot along the way. And people don't understand that because you don't really go into that. They see me now and they're like, man, you're so lucky. You're a young head coach in an Ivy League. I'm like, lucky. I'm lucky.
It's actually kind of, when you're telling that story, it reminded me of something as well. It's about perseverance and doing what it takes. After I graduated from Penn State, I was working at Oakley. I couldn't get a job in the industry. Just couldn't. You know what I mean? Working at the mall.
And you have a student debt and a degree.
The student debt and a degree.
I was working in the paint department.
And one of the things I ended up doing was I moved to London on this, with this visa. And I volunteered, worked at this company called Corbis for 8 months. And while paying, I was in London with, paying. Like, to work for this company. And while working for this company, what I was hoping would happen was an opportunity would open up in New York, which it did. So when it came in and I was an entry-level position, when I was able to say, hey, interview for it, they're like, wait, are you in the system already? I'm like, yeah, I'm volunteering in England. You know what I mean? I had to come out of pocket. And I think one of the lessons that people got to realize, whether you're entering school right now, whether you're, you know what I'm saying, or entering the labor market, or whether you're trying to elevate and get a promotion thing. Sometimes you're going to have to do more work, or you're going to have to do work for free to get there. You know what I mean? That's what people don't realize.
No one says that.
Specifically being one of the younger head coaches, period. I mean, what has been one of the more challenging things that you've experienced, given you've already, you know, championship level coach, you guys won, had a lot of success?
I think that when you become the head coach, I become a head coach at 30 and we win the championship. It was great. And we break the record. It's amazing. And then that summer, the kid I coach breaks the Spanish national records and he wins the European championship. And then we go to the Olympics and, you know, same guy that I coach gets 10th place in the 200. And so I'm riding this wave and it's a high, but I've been a head coach now for, this is going on my 7th year. And so it's more than just that happy high, that exciting high. It's 7 years of learning and growing, because that's what it takes, and really learning about how to do this job. And it's still challenging. And I'm looking forward to this season because I think we're going to win and it's going to be rewarding. And so it's a constant. You know, I don't think you can ever turn it off. I don't believe in being complacent and settling. I think you end up behind when you're complacent, for just my observation of the world. So even in my position now, I find I have to deal with difficulties. We have a large team, a lot of people, you know, a lot of things to manage, and I want to win. And so I'm still the same person, still pushing forward, still wanting to be the best. This is still what's driving me. So I'm coaching kids. Now, I say kids because, you know, they're 17 to 21, 22. They're college age kids. But for me, they are kids. And it's like, if you have kids, you know, if you tell them to eat that broccoli and they don't want to eat it, they hate you. Or if you tell them, you know, they can't stay, it's time for bed, I don't want to go to bed, and you make them go to bed, they hate you. They don't hate you, but they're very upset with you. So I get to be that person who everyone gets upset at when I'm like, okay, as a team, we are not doing this, we're doing it. But it's, you know, I'm not complaining. It's part of it. And I enjoy being in this position. It's just, you ask me what's been difficult. It's been growing and learning what leadership really is. It's not just telling people, it's getting them to buy in and want to do things. And, you know.
Yeah. What does it take to become a championship level coach?
Well, you heard my story. That's kind of, you know, I would say if you are, well, it depends on your starting point as well. You know, if you're a Division I athlete, you have an easier starting point than if you completely have not been an athlete. That's an incredibly high bar. I don't know. If you want to be a championship coach, Division I coach specifically, I would say that you have to get your foot in the door, and it helps to gain experience and to be mentored by a championship coach under the winning program. And so I think the fastest way to do that is to volunteer, work for free, to go to a high-level program, say, hello, I would love to volunteer here and learn. And you will learn everything. And you work with some of the best athletes to the point that you do that for a year or two, you can apply to a job saying, I have coached and worked with these athletes and this individual is my mentor. And that person is reputable enough to where you will get a position, an assistant coach position. It may not be at the national championship team, but they're, 300 plus Division I programs, right? Yeah. Like, if you're trying to be successful, if you ask me three things, so I would say the first thing I would say is make a decision on exactly what you want to do so your choices can correlate with that decision. Yeah. Every day, every choice that you make, what you consume, what you listen to, what you're reading, everything.
That's what it takes.
That's what it takes. I've interviewed 30 Olympians. Hands down, you have to make a decision. I don't think it's debatable. You have to make a decision. Yep. The second thing that I've identified is if you pursue success, you will risk failure, but failure is a risk worth taking.
Yeah.
You're going to risk failure. You're going to risk failure and you're going to fail.
Yeah.
But failure is not the end all be all. If you lift weights and you lift until muscle failure, you can't get another rep. What happens the next time you come and lift? You can do one extra rep.
Yep.
Your body has grown back stronger.
Yeah.
You're tougher. You're able to finish that workout. And so through your failures, you're learning, you're growing, you're becoming better.
And that's the thing, actually. That's one of the things that I've actually, and this is recent. This is not even, it's only after toiling away and paying off this debt and having some success at the jobs that I realized that failure is actually not failure at all unless you give up.
Exactly. Only when you give up is it
only
failure.
When you give up. Yeah, but failure, I mean, learning, growing. When you fail, then you're able to identify the areas, the weaknesses.
I'm not doing that again. Yeah, you're like, so if I do this, I lose. I'm not doing that.
You know what the issue is we're, at least in North America, you get a D or an F. So, you know what I mean? So then you take that and you internalize that. What it really needs to be, it shouldn't be like that. When I fail, then like you said, it's okay, not doing that anymore. That's not good for my diet. I'm going to approach this question like this. I'm going to do 2 weeks of preparation. So there is no failure.
Everything.
Yeah, there's no failure unless you give up. That is the only guaranteed failure.
Absolutely. And so if you pursue success, you're going to risk and you will encounter failure, but that is a risk worth taking. Absolutely. So don't allow the fear of failure to prevent you from taking a chance. And I'll say the third tip or cheat code that I would give is that whatever you're trying to do, whatever you're trying to accomplish, whatever position you're trying to get, let's say you're trying to get a job, be sure to research and acquire the qualifications of your would-be peers. That's big to me. Too many times we try to find a way around being qualified. I don't believe in that. I struggled while coaching to earn my master's degree online. It was not fun. And the year after I got my master's degree, I became a head coach. All head coaches have masters as a requirement. If I didn't struggle and get that master's, I would not have been eligible to become a head coach in the first place.
The last section of the podcast, it's called Power Questions. It's a few questions that's designed to better understand a little bit more about Coach Durant, what makes you tick. So try not to think about them too much, but be honest, and I'm going to hit you with them. You ready?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Right,
I'm always ready.
All right, number one, what's your biggest inspiration?
What is my biggest inspiration? Wow, that was a good question. And so my inspiration is to live the type of life that I decide to live.
How many hours of sleep do you get?
Let's see. I'm a morning person. I am a morning person, and I do not stay up that late like an old man. It sounds crazy, but I can go to bed at 10 o'clock, and be just fine, and be up at 6.
So you get 8 hours of sleep is what you're saying?
I definitely get 8 hours of sleep. Yeah.
Well, what's your diet like?
Let's see. I eat fairly well. I am not like you because I know you're really meticulous on how you eat. I do get blood work regularly because I want to, make sure I'm healthy. And so far, every time I go to the doctor, I am very healthy. And so in my mind, that means when I'm doing works, and I still get to eat pizza and Caribbean food.
There we go.
Pizza is still one of my favorite things. I don't eat it every day, but I love pizza. I love Caribbean food. I am an island boy, so I love me some jerk chicken, some oxtail, some curry goat, curry chicken, brown stew chicken, all of it. Oh, man, you're making me hungry.
Favorite activity to unwind?
Well, you know what? I'm a gamer. I haven't, even though I said time, I've time to do things, but I haven't had time to play video games necessarily because I feel like you just need a lot of extra time. It's very time consuming.
Very time consuming.
I know when you were younger, we played games when we were younger, folks.
NBA 2K, Power Stone.
Damien is actually very good at a game called Power Stone. It's unreasonable. He's very, very good. I can't beat him. I'm pretty good at games.
GoldenEye. So
I am the master at GoldenEye for Nintendo 64 for you youngins. Right. I am nice with it. So I do like to game to unwind. Netflix, YouTube videos. YouTube is hilarious. I have my YouTube, since I started my YouTube channel, my podcast, I've been on YouTube more.
If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Wow. Oh, man. The first thing I said was flight, because I would love to be able to go because I like to travel and I want to be able to get there.
Last question. What are you reading or listening to?
What am I reading? Right now, what am I reading? You're going to laugh. I'm only right now reading manga.
I was going to say nothing wrong with that, baby. Listen,
people underestimate manga.
Listen, man, thank you so much for stopping by the Cheat Code Corner.
Thanks for having me, man.
Quick question, last one, actually. I'm sorry for that. If someone wants to get in touch with you, you know what I mean? Or like, obviously, I want you to shout out your IG, shout out your podcast. Yes. But if people want to connect with you, let's hear. How can they connect with Coach Durant?
All right. You can find me on Instagram. That is where I am the most active, AKD Coach. That is AKD Coach. I'm usually posting track and field content or motivational stuff, some lifestyle stuff. You know, you want to travel a little bit. I like to travel, so you can get some pointers, but mainly motivational and track and field stuff. I'm also on Facebook, Adrian Durant. You can find me. Most of my profiles are open at this point. If you have track and field inquiries, AKD72 at cornell.edu. And if it's motivation, you want me to speak or anything along those lines, you can find me at durantadrian@gmail.com. You can also book me on adriandurant.com. That's where I have, you can book me to speak to groups or any motivational sessions. And my podcast is also on adriandurant.com and on YouTube. And the name of the podcast is The Home Stretch with Adrian Durant. And you can also find it on iTunes.
Shout out to the home everything. Yeah, it was everything. That's a lot, but I mean, big things, but the shout out to The Home Stretch with Adrian Durant. It is a fantastic podcast. He brings on some of the best Olympians galore. The insight is amazing. The conversation is fantastic. Literally after every single episode that I watch and listen to, I want to run through a wall and do some push-ups.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean? So it is fantastic. But listen, brother, man, this has been more than I could ever ask for. Thank you so much for joining. This has been fantastic.
You having me, man. It's been great.
Cool, man. So we'll catch up another time.
Definitely.
Yo, what's good, fam? It's time for the recap of the Adrian Durant Cheat Codes Corner podcast. Adrian basically touched on 3 or 4 cheat codes. So numero uno, as it relates to if you're trying to break into a program, best thing to do is to volunteer. Now, this applies to also business world. Look, if you're trying to get on another team, or if you're trying to understand how a particular person, is a winner and does well, try to see if you can work with them on a specific project or collaborate, or, just ask them. Ask them like, hey, can I get 30 minutes of your time? I'd love to pick your brain on X, Y, or Z, or take them out for a drink. The idea is sometimes, guys, you're going to have to be able to put up your money, time, or resources to gain access to that valuable information. But in the end, it's going to be helpful. Adrian also talked about, and this is not so much a cheat code as it is much kind of a directive, which is number one, in order to really be successful, you have to make a decision. You have to make a decision. You have to write it down. You have to say, hey, look, I'm going to do this. And then basically the benefits of that is that everything that you do, your decisions, your thought process, your energy is going to go towards that goal. And that's how you can actually put yourself on the track of greatness. Another thing that he talked about also is the importance of risk. Risk is just a part of it. You're going to probably fail on your own along the way. But the reality is, as long as you don't give up, then failure won't necessarily happen. Like, failure is only guaranteed when we quit. So make sure that you take the information that you got, apply it, optimize, adapt, and then move forward. The last thing, which is a cheat code that I really like that he mentioned, is the importance of gaining the qualifications of your would-be peers. In other words, if you're trying to get into a particular role, a job, whatever it is, right? Check and see what the people who are in that job or in that role, what type of hard skill qualifications that they have. If you need an MBA, if you need to have 10 years of experience, if you need to know Final Cut Pro, or if you need to be an Excel master, make sure that you have some level of understanding or expertise within that. Just consider that, unnecessary. Yes, of course, there are exceptions to the rule, but why make it more hard on yourself? Get the qualifications, stop being lazy, and then stay on the path of greatness. All right, guys, until next time, hope you enjoyed the episode, and, please subscribe, hit like if you like it. And if you're interested, feel free to email me at dc@cheatcodecorner.com if you want to join the podcast, or if you're interested and you want some cheat codes, for a particular endeavor. All right. Thanks a lot.